Hi, so I started an experiment on October 14 to figure out how to grow healthy green water culture and Daphnia. And, um, and I wanted to know how to tell when your green water is safe or, let's say, not toxic before adding to your Daphnia culture. Um, I have seen in the past a lot of people asking, why do my Daphnia die when I add them to green water? So I decided to test a few things myself. And as you remember, if you remember, here is my setup. There were 4 buckets for Daphnia and 1 for green water culture. The white bucket is inside because it's in a heated environment. So I used 4 buckets for Daphnia, 2 orange, 1 yellow, and 1 white, and plus an extra bucket for growing green water. The white bucket had a heater set to around 26 Celsius degrees, and other buckets stayed at the room temperature, even if it is a garage actually. And only the yellow bucket had a slow aeration, a gentle one. And the green water culture had strong aeration. All buckets had the same LED light, 24 hours a day. And for the green water culture, I used Synedesmus culture as the algae source. I don't know how it is pronounced. Sorry about that. And a little bit of fertilizer, which you can find from any hardware store. It's the liquid fertilizer for plants 20-20-20 for the NPK. And this is really important, I started all of the cultures not from aquarium water or used water. They are from tap water, and this is really important. Why? Because I don't want any other algae or cyanobacteria or even hydra to feed on my Daphnia or the nutrients. And I always use tap water for the Daphnia cultures. So starting after the experiment on October 14, after 3 days, sorry about that, my dog is just going crazy because he hears me talking and asking, who the hell are you talking to? So by day 3, the green water turned into a nice rich green color, basically perfect for starting the Daphnia cultures. So I tested the ammonia and chlorine, and chlorine was 0, obviously, because there was they stayed like 2 nights, 3 days, and the ammonia was like below 0.5 ppm, which is okay for most of the fish and small creatures. And Then I um, added my Daphnia to my green water cultures in those buckets at day 3, and at the time the green water was ready to be fed, and I top off the green water with dechlorinated tap water, again sitting next behind those buckets in the red small bucket, and a bit of liquid fertilizer, which is like the, I told you before, the soluble fertilizer, the blue stuff. I fed the Daphnia at like every 2-3 days, mostly 3 days, about 2 liters of green water per bucket. And I observed that the white bucket, which is inside, I'll show you later, with the heater at 26 degrees centigrade, it was the fastest, it had the fastest growth rate. By day 7, that culture was exploded so much that instead of adding more green water to feed, I started harvesting regularly. The other buckets, in the garage, they boomed up around day 11. So it was 4 days before they catch up with the heated bucket. So we know that the temperature is an important key point starting a Daphnia culture, but it's also not necessary. The most interesting thing was all of the buckets other than the yellow one, which didn't have any aeration in it. Of course, we observed a film layer on the surface, and I had to stir the buckets maybe twice a day to break the surface film. So, lesson learned. Even a little bit of air movement, I guess, makes a big difference for gas exchange and keeping the surface area clean. By day 11, all the unheated buckets you can see here were ready to harvest, and I'll show you what I have been harvesting nearly every day and feeding every 2 days. I started taking out a full scoop with a large net. Let me show you. Sorry. With a large net, scoop and thin the Daphnia. Now we are at day 11, day 15, and everything looks great. I'll show you a close-up, and all the cultures are healthy and stable, but that doesn't mean they will crash. I think this is the point that I need to decide whether I will continue feeding the Daphnia and harvesting them, or just harvest all, feed it to the fish, or freeze them and start a new culture. Maybe I will just start in harvest all the Daphnia in one of the buckets, and then start a new culture, and let the two buckets continue, and see when they will crash. Because if you are familiar with raising or culturing Daphnia, it will eventually crash, no matter what. So here are the main things that I learned. First of all, I tried in small jars using the green water before the third day, and the ammonia levels were higher, and the sample Daphnia, they all died, unfortunately. And what I also learned, that the heated setups grow faster and need more frequent harvesting and feeding also. And unheated setups, a peak happens around day 11. In these conditions, I mean, like 21 degrees, tap water, whatever the hardness and pH is, they're really not important. I'll show you the TDS and pH. Not really important, because I have added the clay, monmortolite clay, and it roofs up the TDS because it has too much calcium and kind of like nutrients and protein in it. And TDS doesn't matter. It will be high, no matter what your tap water is. The pH, on the other hand, it's like I had different cultures around 7.2 to 6.4, and they all did great. Nothing different. The aeration, a gentle aeration, breaks the surface tension and keeps you some unwanted work, like stirring the buckets twice a day, and prevents the surface film, and kind of improves the gas exchange. I don't know, it helps at that gentle aeration. If it helps the oxygenization level of the water, but who knows? Because the still water lets that film build up, and then it definitely limits the oxygen, the gas exchange at the surface, and all the gas exchange happens not in the water column but on the surface area. So when you put a kind of like here, a kind of aeration in your aquarium or your cultures, the oxygen doesn't dissolve at the bubbles. They don't dissolve as oxygen in the water column, but whatever happens is on the surface. It's called the gas exchange. So the dissolved oxygen level increases if the surface area of your water is bigger, and it decreases if it is smaller. That's why the small aquariums they all need kind of aeration. And finally, I let the LED lights go on 24 hours because I want the Daphnia to be active during the day, all day. And I don't I don't know that if they need a rest or whatever, but you can go for the green water culture, you can go 18 hours, even 12 hours. Actually, it is better if you have a dark time, like 6 hours, for the, all the plants do whatever they do at night, using carbon dioxide throughout the day with the light, and then use oxygen during the dark stage, night. So if you happen to, okay, let's say if your Daphnia die when you add them to the green water, it's actually or usually not the algae, it's that the culture isn't mature yet or balanced yet. Like, you have to wait until your ammonia drops below 0.5. It takes like maybe 2-3 days with the amount of fertilization, the fertilizer we have added to the water, and the amount of algae that feeds on that and multiplies. So you have to wait maybe a little bit more. And with those simple tweaks, your green water and Daphnia can thrive together under the same conditions. I mean, light, aeration, and tap water. The important point is the stability. I have to say this, the experiment will go on with some different feedings, and I want to observe the time when they crash and try to figure out when to start a new culture, a fresh culture, because since you have like heaps amount of Daphnia, once you go through this stage, and you have the green water already, it's easier and it will be faster, relatively faster, to start a new culture and come to the exact point that you can harvest daily. So here is what it looks like in the yellow bucket, and I can easily say that even the surface film, it helped, the aeration helped with the surface film. The Daphnia culture is kind of weaker. I mean, not dense as the culture here. Or I may be wrong, because this is pure subjective observation that I cannot even count, but I will take samples and try to show you, the amount of Daphnia we have in all those buckets. And also, here is our green water culture growing. And here is a bucket of dechlorinated water. And if you're curious, this is my continuous supply of Daphnia, because this was an experiment and you don't always succeed in your experiments, right? So this is a bigger, how can I say, tub, a pot or something that holds around 20 gallons or maybe more of water, and at the time being it's also full of Daphnia. Okay, let's try to show it without the aeration, like this. Okay, but as you can see, it may be looking really nice to you, but for me this is thinking about how much resource we are using. This is not enough. The amount of Daphnia living here, they are having a rent-free luxury life. Yes, I can continue doing this and feed all my fish, but definitely it's not really productive at all if you consider how much Daphnia we got from a 5-gallon bucket basically in 11 days. Let me take a net and show you how dense these cultures are, if I can find my net. Okay, so okay, I don't like making YouTube videos, and I'm definitely not good editing anything, so we're just trying to take this in one shot. That's why it's not a good quality video, just an informative one. Okay, let's take a scoop from our existing culture without getting a lot of the duckweed, and try to show it here. Okay, so yes, there is a good amount that I can harvest daily and feed a few fish, which is not really enough for me, but most of you maybe that's just what you need. Like if you are doing pea puffers, scarlet buddies and things like that that require live foods, or just want to breed a few apistos and want to trigger them. So let's go to the yellow bucket. Okay, I need to change this to our yellow buckets and maybe zoom a little bit. Okay. So you can easily see how much we have in just one scoop and how much more productive than this 20-gallon or 30-gallon tub in just 11 days. Okay. Now, like I said, the yellow tub, the bucket is not really productive as this one here. Sorry. Our orange bucket. Okay. And let's take a scoop. And voila. Okay. Let there be light, not night. Okay, how can I do this? As you can see, and also there is still heaps amount of Daphnia. Let's clean this net. Take another scoop from the other orange buckets, which are basically the same, and let's try to get a bigger scoop. Okay. Okay, this is 4 scoops. Okay, so you can see maybe here, if I just put how much Daphnia we have. Yeah, now I will harvest today eventually and feed with green water, but basically let me show you how I do that. It's very easy. I want to show you the density of the algae culture. I'm taking okay. So here is what we have. If I can maybe put it here. And show you. Okay. Since there is no aeration to keep the algae suspended in the water column, it tends to clump and stick on the surface, like here, you can see. But if you have a strong aeration, if you can see, this is basically what you want. All the algae is in the water column and available for the Daphnia to feed on, to munch on. Okay, here is the fertilizer I'm using. If you can see, I'm not sure. Okay, this is the Miracle Grow soluble plant fertilizer. I prefer 20-20-20 for the NPK, but you know, most of them will do. So the next experiment I'm going to do with those two orange buckets will be one, I will harvest both of them first, a really good harvest, and then one I will feed with the green water and the other with this. This is what you see in all of the Taiwanese, Chinese reels at Facebook that they feed on their Daphnia, which is called sometimes ammonia water. And you always ask yourself, or even in the comments I come by, people ask, what the heck is ammonia water? Basically, it's rice bran, some molasses, and some protein-based catfish food or any fish food high in protein. And this stays in this cup for like 24 hours and ready to be fed. First you just have to filter it out from the big particles or whatever in it, because you don't want to fall your water when you drop, when you add to your water, and you just want the milky coffee-like, nutritious water, and you have to feed really carefully. I will try to feed the yellow bucket with yeast, but there is no scientific thing on that. So like, let's say I feed one of the buckets with green water, one of them with the ammonia water, which is prepared Daphnia food, and also one of them with yeast. There is nothing I can say about which one is better or worse compared to each other, because you cannot control all the variables in this kind of an experiment. Even the feeding amounts or the kind of fish food you add, etc., or even the yeast, it may change everything. So just for my own curiosity, I will try to feed them with different feedings for the next experiment, and try to come up with a solution or an idea actually to what to feed, to see what to feed or what will be easier. So far I have been testing the ammonia water and the yeast already in some other cultures and other experiments, or in the past I have been doing this. The ammonia water um, is easier under the circumstances that yeast seems to be more easy, right? Like you just put some yeast in a water, just stir and pour. Yeast follows the water a lot more than this. And it's not logical because there is different kinds of fish food in it. I put sometimes spirulina flakes, things like that. Sometimes even pellet food for ponds. Still, the ME water seems to be more safe than the yeast. I don't know the reason about that. But yeast, your culture seems like happy one night, you feed it, in the morning they're all dead. With the ME water, it doesn't crash like this. It just, you can see that it's the population is declining. You can see the culture is going down, and you still have time to harvest one more, change the water, or just start a new culture with your Daphnia that you have harvested. But the safest way is this. The problem with this is you need a culture. And this is not the culture that you put a bucket in the backyard, put some cow manure, and an opossum went into the bucket and drowned and dead and magically green water. No, you don't want that. That's, other than being dangerous for your health, it may contain many other things. Like you cannot get aquarium water to start your Daphnia culture. Because in your aquarium water, you cannot just put the old sponge, squeeze a few times, and voila, magically put it into your windowsill, and 3 days you will end up with, yes, you may end up a green water, but that algae may not be the algae that you were expecting to happen. It may be cyanobacteria, which is toxic to your fish and your Daphnia, like the hair algae is cyanobacteria. It can have hydra in it from your aquarium. If you ever feeding any live food like me, I'm feeding brine shrimp, not frozen, live brine shrimp, live Daphnia from time to time. So there is definitely hydra in my aquarium. You may not be able to see it, but 100% be sure. I'm sure that it is there. So you cannot use the aquarium water. You cannot use any green water that you come up from a pond, from a jug that you have forgotten like 6 months ago. That's not the green water that we want. We want the green water that's not on the sides of your aquarium or on your plants sticking. We want the green water that is one-celled organisms suspended in your water column. And how you will have it, I'm sorry, you will have to buy the culture. I'm not selling Daphnia. Most of the time, I'm selling the green water culture. Because that's hard to find. You can buy Daphnia eggs, etc. You can find Daphnia, but buying the green water culture, it costs a bit. You can buy it online. You can check many resources in every country, in every part of the world. The universities are using many different green water algae cultures for the experiments they are conducting. So they have it and they sell it. Not for profit sometimes, just for sharing. But either it is chlorella or semidesmos or any other kind of green water algae, you need to buy it. You may end up with a good algae. It's not 100% guaranteed. And this, I cannot just buy the green water culture once and use it forever. This gets contaminated. Sometimes I use the same net, I use the same cup, or even one drop of water. This can be easily contaminated. It's not a laboratory here. It's a garage, God sakes. So I have to replace my green water culture when I'm suspecting anything that doesn't go right, or from time to time I decide to just buy a new culture, and I have to do it. Okay, thanks for watching, and I'll share the text of the experiment in the Facebook group Live Food Cultures, which is run by, I think it was Pierre. Sorry about if I remember wrong. Thanks again. Bye.